Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking the movie Highlander, The Search for Vengeance, also called simply Highlander Vengeance. And this is a very interesting film. First of all, as you can tell, I am a big Highlander fan. This is a shirt I got years and years ago in the mystic days of yore, known as the 90s. And it basically ended up in storage at my house for buried in the basement for many years. I dug it out not too long ago and decided to resume wearing it because whatever its flaws, Highlander was quite a lot of fun back in the day, and I still love the original Christopher Lambert movie from the 80s to this day more than words could ever possibly express. So let's just kind of get right into it. And this is an interesting film because it was written by one of the writers who did a lot of stuff for the '90s Highlander show. They also did stuff for Highlander the Raven, and also wrote Highlander the Source. I got Wikipedia called up here just to kind of help me keep everything straight. And these guys worked with the good folks over at Madhouse, who over in Japan, to do this movie. So it's sort of a U.S. Japanese co-production. Um, got a rather impressive list of Japanese voice actors, like Romy Park is in there, and it was actually directed by a fella named Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who directed Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, which is a really nice movie, and he also did Ninja Scroll. And the thing about Ninja Scroll you have to realize is that back in the day, this was one of the first anime titles to really make a major mark outside of television in the US. Now, before there'd been a few Japanese shows that had been heavily edited and redubbed and reworked and put on American TV. Ninja Scroll was one of those ones that came out on video and really took a lot of people by surprise. It was like a lot of people in the 90s first exposure to what anime really was. Of course, Ninja Scroll is also a ridiculously violent and very crazy series. This was a lot of the sort of the 90s version of Dude Bros, who were really going about like how this is the most extreme thing ever. But yeah, for all its flaws, Ninja Scroll is still a hell of a lot of fun. It's just one of those ones it's probably better not to take too seriously, especially considering all the stuff that happens to like the main female character. Yeah. So yeah, actually, if I really stop and dwell on it, there are actually quite a few similarities between some of the stuff that happens in the story here and some of the stuff that happens in Ninja Scroll. But anyway, let's just kind of get right into it. Now, this is set in basically yet another alternate Highlander universe and follows Colin MacLeod. And Colin's interesting because he's not actually a proper member of Clan MacLeod. He was basically made an honorary member years and years after he became an immortal, and he fought and died one of his many deaths trying to help the Clan MacLeod. But he apparently took that honor quite seriously, as he used the name MacLeod ever since. Whatever his surname may have originally been, if he even had one, seeing as how he hailed from Britain in the 2nd century, probably not. But he never used it. So there is no Duncan, there is no Mythos, there is no Connor, no Quentin. This is totally its own bag. And it's set in, unsurprisingly, as Highlander sequels often tend to be, a really shitty future where things have gone to hell that more than a little bit cribs from Fist of the North Star in a lot of ways. If you're familiar with that series, you can see a lot of little bits from Fist of the North Star have been thrown into it. And the movie, basically the whole thing is Connor is basically spent 2,000 years trying to get revenge on another immortal, and it's all coming to a head in New York here in this really crappy version of the 21st century, or the 22nd century, I should say. And overall, I mean, the movie is basically a very solid B, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of things here that seem like very worn territory, and for some reason, God only knows why, they apparently decided, well, let's try and take a lot of the stuff from Highlander 2 and run with it, despite the fact that Highlander 2 is the most hated thing in all of the entire Highlander universe. And rightfully so. It is an awful, awful movie. It's just one of those ones where you go like, you just basically took everything that was cool in that last movie and threw it right down the toilet. Now here, I have the feeling this was kind of meant to be, this is what Highlander 2 should have been in a lot of ways. And okay, I can understand kind of wanting to erase that mistake, but what's done is done. And if you've got an opportunity like this to work with a really well-respected Japanese studio, you've got a really nice number of very talented Japanese voice actors, a director with a pretty impressive resume, and your go-to thing is Highlander 2? Oh! I mean, look, I can understand wanting to have, a completely self-contained story. That's why we don't have Connor or Duncan or anything like that. People who come into this sort of thing with a lot of baggage. And this movie does a really great job of taking the rules of the Highlander universe. Like, immortals cannot kill on holy ground, what quickenings are like. And, of course, there can be only one. And really, really honors the Highlander mythology. I mean, there's even little nods, like the coat that Colin wears. Just basically kind of a green version of the one that Connor MacLeod wore in the first Highlander movie, when he was portrayed by Christopher Lambert. So, I mean, there is that. And again, this is written by somebody who had done work on basically, the Highlander TV series, was very familiar with the universe. And they, as I said, they did take a lot of effort to honor the mythology there. They took the rules seriously. But there are a few things there that did sort of bother me, like Colin kind of gets in trouble for like waving around a sword on holy ground. Not actually trying to attack anybody, but he just sort of picks up his sword and waves it around while he's on holy ground, and he gets struck by lightning for it. Okay, no. That's not how it works, or at least that's not how I've always understood it to work. You can like have a weapon on holy ground, you can pick it up and wave it around. You just can't attack another immortal with a weapon. And you sure as shit should not kill another immortal on holy ground. They even established in the TV universe what happens when you do that, and they basically said, yeah, back in ancient Italy, there were some guys who duked it out in the temple, and when the other guy killed the other, a little thing called Pompeii happened. And there's also, it seems to have been extended to like, you can't wave around a weapon, you can't do anything negative to another immortal on holy ground. I mean, there's a point where Marcus, the main bad guy, has Connor on holy ground a number of times, and it's like, Connor's beat all to hell. If he just kind of grabbed the guy and dragged him outside and cut his head off there, that would have solved a lot of his problems. But each and every time, the dude just walks away. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and I feel a little weird second guessing somebody who has actually written about stuff for the Highlander universe. I mean, obviously, it would make much more sense that they would be more familiar with that than I am. So maybe this is just sort of them extrapolating a little bit, but again, it just doesn't feel quite like it jives with how I understood the rules of the universe to work. Now, let's kind of continue on with some of my criticisms of the movie, and then I'll kind of talk about the things I liked more. One of the other things that really bothered me is the female characters in this movie. There's only 3. There's Colin's wife, Moya, from back when he was still a mortal guy, and she's probably probably the second most developed one out of the 3 women in the movie. But even then, she's really, I really hate to use that term "women in refrigerators" that people use so much, because it really just seems to get applied to any time a female character gets killed, or if a male character has a female in their backstory who died. but it's specifically supposed to mean a female who is killed to further the character development of a male character. And there's a lot of leeway on that. I think it's more taken to mean like not that male characters can't have female characters in their past who've died, and this is automatically bad. I take it that to mean that Gail Simone, the person who came up with that term, and an immensely talented comic book writer in her own right as well, means that's it. That's their entire purpose, is to die in this guy's backstory or to die to make this guy pissed off. There's nothing to the characters more than that. Now, the movie does try to give Moya a little more credit than that. She does kind of have a little bit of her own thing going on, but basically at the end of the day, a lot of the bad stuff that happens back in the past is her fault, and it all happens because she makes an incredibly stupid decision, and not like an understandable decision, a decision that any sensible person have said that would never work. What in the name of God makes you think you should even try that? Now, the second major female character of any real note we're introduced to is Deborah, and she's this woman who was in love with Connor, centuries after Moya died. But that's it. Her whole thing is she loves Connor. She loves him so much. And that's it. We only even briefly ever get her to see her very briefly. There's nothing more to her than that. I mean, we do get to see that she's a rather brave person. She stands up to some people who are trying to hurt Connor, but that's it. And then there's Dahlia, who's pretty much, I would say, unequivocally the main female character, and she's the one who's in the present day. I guess I should say there are 4 female characters. I take that back, but we'll get to the last one in a minute. And she's really cool. She's this really badass fighter, saves Connor's ass, and is also the leader of this resistance movement that's trying to take down Marcus, who's become this dictator. The thing is, though, apparently she can't find any better way, despite all of that, to pay the bills than being a prostitute. Seriously. Badass, awesome fighter, resistance leader, makes her money screwing fat guys. Seriously? Seriously. Okay, I'm just going to have to leave it at that. And then there's Kayla, who's basically Marcus's lover and a fellow immortal. And that's kind of really all that is to her. We briefly get some backstory that she was a Japanese woman who got killed in some battle. Marcus found her right after she became, and basically kind of right after she transitioned to being immortal, and more or less sort of took her in pretty right on the spot as his lover and right hand woman. And that's all there is to her. That and the fact she likes to wander around in like weird fetish gear. I mean, there's literally nothing else to this woman's character. She's absolutely devoted to Marcus. She likes to fight and is pretty good at it, in all fairness. And she likes to wear this really creepy ass clothes. I mean, again, you can really see, if you're familiar with it, the fingerprints of Fist of the North Star all over this movie, especially in the frickin' god-awful haircut that Marcus has. But then again, I suppose that's also kind of a little bit of a trait endemic to the Madhouse style, because a lot of these guys look like they could be characters from Ninja Scroll. Let's put it that way. But anyway, so in terms of the story, I mean, it's a pretty simple story, you know. Marcus basically kills Connor's wife, and Connor spends literally 2,000 frickin' years trying again and again to kill this guy, and failing again and again. And there's always a way that he's just lucky enough that he always ends up in a situation where Marcus can't or won't kill him. And there's this really great point where they're fighting in World War II, and I think, Connor loses yet again, but he accidentally falls out of a plane and lands in a church. And Marcus just says to him, it's like, time to get a hobby, or something like that. And, this is really the whole thing. And oh yeah, there's also this ghost of a druid who talks to Connor and gives him advice and makes fun of him and stuff. And I wish to God I was making that up because it's frickin' ridiculous. But the whole thing with wait, I called him Connor, didn't I? Sorry, Colin is that's all he has is this quest for vengeance for something that happened 2,000 years ago. It's repeatedly pointed out to him that he had plenty of opportunities to, make real friends, to love other women, to, do anything that he wanted with his life and his immortality. And he didn't. All he did for 2,000 years was chase after this one guy trying to kill him. I mean, even Marcus at one point just says to him, like, seriously, man? Seriously? I mean, stop and think about it. The villain of the movie is disappointed in the hero. Even the bad guy is saying, man, your priorities are stupid and messed up, and he's right. Of course, it's a little bit hypocritical on Marcus's part. If you get into him, like, he constantly telling him, like, dude, you've been trying to do the same thing for 2,000 years. You keep failing. Why do you keep on bothering? When Marcus's whole thing is that he was a Roman. He absolutely believed that Rome was meant to dominate the earth, to, take over and by force enlighten all the people of the world. And he even said, to Colin at one point, you lost the woman that you loved, I loved Rome, and I lost that. And throughout history, Marcus just keeps joining things like, the Japanese shogunate, the British Empire, even the Nazis, trying to recreate this empire that he so believed in back when he was immortal. And here in the future, he's basically become a dictator himself in what's left of New York. So in a way, yeah, Marcus is kind of doing the exact same thing. He's just actually taking some time out of life to enjoy it. So let's see. Well, I've talked about Dahlia, so yeah, her being the badass resistance leader. Her thing is really just kind of like, hey, get Colin off his ass. But again, she's not the most well written of characters, but they do make, basically she does a lot with the little that she's given. I was honestly kind of a little disappointed that I really sort of wish that they'd done more with her as a character. Like, ditch the frickin' prostitute thing. Give her a little bit more depth. But, again, they do a reasonably decent job with what they do give. The prostitute thing aside. She has at one point this really interesting speech where she's in church and is praying. And Connor's like, man, God, seriously? God let the world get like this. How can you possibly pray to God? And Dahlia says, like, well, God didn't do this to the world. People did. It's not God's fault that people screwed up the world. It's people's fault. So we shouldn't blame God for that. And this is, of course, like, yeah, pretty much BS as far as Colin is concerned. But this becomes a pretty important point. Are you willing to have faith in something more than yourself? And yeah, I kind of think that that covers the main things that I have to say. At the end of the day, as I said, this movie gets a pretty solid B. And I know I spent most of my time harping on about the bad stuff, but it's really well animated. There's veteran voice actors on both the English and Japanese versions. This is totally up Studio Madhouse's alley, and if you like their work, well, you're going to enjoy this. It's extreme. It has a few things here that I'll quibble over. But at the end of the day, it's really, really very true to the Highlander mythology. And frankly, if you ask me, out of all the Highlander movies, after the original Highlander movie, this is probably the best. I still don't like this whole post-apocalyptic bullshit. But even so, this takes that and it really runs with it about as well as you could do that idea. And, at the end of the day, I can't say that I was ever bored during this movie. I can't say that I was never not having fun while watching this movie. And I can't say that when I was watching this movie, I was just sitting there thinking, man, I'd forgotten just how much fun and how awesome and exciting the Highlander universe could be. So, again, not a perfect movie, but if you like anime, it's worth giving a try. If you like Highlander, you owe it to yourself to at least see this movie once. And yeah, I mean, this is just a good way to kick back and enjoy a flick. So with that, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.